Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear us out there? All right, awesome. Happy Friday. Thank you guys for joining us for the Homeschool Fathers panel. You stayed all the way to the end, and we are just so excited. We know you are not going to be disappointed because there are going to be so many amazing things shared this afternoon. So before we get started, I just want to take a moment and recognize whether you are new to this homeschooling game or you've been in this for a while, but if you're a homeschool dad, would you mind standing up so we can just recognize you? Homeschool dads, yes, yes, yes. I love seeing the homeschool dads, right? Because so often they are behind the scenes. And so as co-laborers in this work, I want to make sure that we take an opportunity and recognize those fathers who are playing such an important role in this incredible work that we're doing with our families. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Najah Drakes. I am a work-life balance coach, and I have the distinguished pleasure of moderating this panel for the second year in a row of the fathers. And while the mothers are often thought of as being on the front lines, when I think about the fathers, the mothers are on the front line, but often the fathers are the backbone, right? And if you think about it in terms of like kind of how a chiropractor works, right? When the back is out of alignment, it radiates pain and issues throughout the rest of the body. And so we want to talk about today, how can we bring about alignment, right, with the mothers and fathers with that vision that God has likely planted in your hearts for your homeschool. So with that said, I am going to get started introducing our distinguished panel. And we're going to start on my far right, your left. This is Akintunde Ponder. He is a logistics manager for a federal contractor and a longtime resident of the Atlanta metro area, although he originally hails from Oakland, California. He and his wife, Coretta, have been married for 24 years and have homeschooled for nearly 20 years. They have looked to expose their children to various areas of interest, including speech, debate, sports, robotics, civil air patrol, music, and other areas that allow for self-advocacy on their journey into adulthood. But primarily, their goal in homeschooling their children has been to provide a nurturing academic environment conducive to both scholarship and spiritual development, where they would come to find their purpose through the knowledge of the Lord. They're the parents of 5 children that range between 23 and 6 years old. So we are excited to hear Akintunde's perspective this afternoon. Our next panelist is Dr. Matthew Rankin. Dr. Rankin is the husband has been married for nearly 11 years. He is the father of 2 sons, father of 2, a 10-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. He graduated in July 2023 from the Emory University with a Ph.D. in sociology, where his dissertation was entitled "For Our Children: How Black Parents Approach Homeschooling," which examines the motivational, curricular, and instructional dynamics of Black families' homeschooling praxis. So I'm very excited to hear from you as well. And he currently assumes the primary homeschooling responsibilities for his son and his daughter. Our next panelist is Dr. Alan Shaw. Dr. Shaw is an honor graduate from Harvard University, where he got his degree in applied mathematics. He received an MS and PhD from MIT in computer science and media arts and sciences, respectively. He is currently a tenured professor, currently teaching courses in computer science at Kennesaw State University, and researches potential educational benefits of virtual and collaborative technologies. Dr. Shaw is the pastor of Christ First Community Church, and he is married to the fabulous Michelle Shaw, who you all have probably met many times over this week. Our next and final panelist is Minister Timothy Smith. He is the husband of 15 years to his wife, Shanita, and the mother of 4 beautiful children who he affectionately calls the Z Clan. He has Zay, Zion, Zoe, and Zach. They are originally from Memphis, Tennessee, where he began his ministry over 20 years ago. He enjoys motivating people to love the Lord Jesus Christ and follow him. And he's grateful that he gets to do what he loves to do. And that is loving on people from different ages, stages, and phases of life as they're at this fabulous church, New Life Church, which is an absolutely fabulous church, and we are so happy that they hosted us here this week. His biggest achievement is that he gets to show the love of Jesus to everyone he meets. So that is our distinguished panel. So let's jump right into the questions. All right, I want you gentlemen to just share a little bit really quickly about how many kids you have and maybe where they are in their homeschooling journey. And if they're past the school age, tell us what they're doing now, post-homeschool. If you'll start with Akintunde.
So mentioned earlier, I have 5 children, 4 boys, 1 girl, smack dab in the middle, bless her. My eldest 2 boys are men, I should say. They're college age, 23 and 21. They're both kind of wrapping up. One, actually, as a result, I think heard someone talking about earlier, one of the benefits of homeschooling is being able to expose your children to just different options so they could find their paths and whatnot. At around 12 years old, one of the guys at our church who worked at Delta Flight Works, I believe it was, basically he's a flight control guy, whatnot. He invited kids from our church, some from the homeschool group, to go up to Delta like 12, his late night shift at 12 o'clock at night, and visit the operations center. They got a chance to get up in their huge, like 2-story, flight simulators and whatnot, and actually see what it was like to be in that environment. I have a picture of him from that night, looking back at me like this with his eyes beaming. He just taken off and landed a 747.
Wow.
He said he wanted to fly. Right now, he's in his senior year. At I think it's MTSU, in their aviation program, on his way to being he's already a pilot, so he's on his way to being a commercial pilot.
Awesome.
But again, it was just that influence, that early on influence that prompted him. His younger brother is a baseball player. We were a sports family for a long time. I was never one of those dads that really, pushed it like this is what you have to do. Just saw it as part of a holistic aspect of the educational process.
Indeed.
You learn how to manipulate your body and all that stuff. In addition to your academics, it all comes into play. But he really took to being an athlete, as well as, which was frustrating because he was a really smart kid, but he loved sports, and so he had a pretty high acumen for it. So he's gone pretty well, playing ball in college right now. Our 16-year-old daughter, she is, I guess, in her junior year. On her way, she decided a number of years ago she wanted to be a marine biologist, and so that's the path that we're on. I have a 12-year-old son, and we're trying to figure out what it is. He's a special guy. Just trying to figure out what it is his kind of bent.
Yes. And
allow him to follow that path. And then our youngest is our 6-year-old son, our hello surprise.
Hello surprise.
Baby. But just a little ball of magic. And so that's our family.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Dr. Rankin, tell us a little bit about your family.
Yes, so like I said, married nearly 11 years to my wonderful wife, Letice. And we have 2 children, my son Blair, who is 10 years old, and our daughter Harper, who is 5. Feels like they're kind of like 20 going on 15, honestly, like that. But you know how that goes with the kids. But these years have gone by fast. Our homeschooling journey really started 2020, right? COVID hits and the game changes, like a lot of families around the country. I had a background in education. I had the opportunity to teach in both private and public schools in the lower and middle school grade levels. And so when, the time came to decide, hey, after this, official COVID year has ended and then we're sort of going into 2020, 2021 academic year, what do we want to do? How comfortable do we feel sending Blair, at the time Blair was actually in a prep school. and we were saying, hey, how comfortable do we feel sending him back? And there were a lot of question marks. I think Latice was I think she pretty much had known that she wasn't entirely comfortable with it, because there were still a lot of just questions about how safe is it going to be? What is this COVID thing? And, what does it really entail? Back then, we all didn't know as a nation. But ultimately, we decided to say, you know what? It was a pretty practical thing. I had the background. And not only that, I had the opportunity, the privilege of being an at-home dad for Blair during 0 to 3 for him. So having that experience and being an at-home dad, having the experience of being a former educator, it was kind of like a no-brainer. And we just said, you know what, let's do this. And she was actually the first one to tell them, say, hey, you know what, your dad's gonna teach you like that. Right?
That is so awesome.
Yeah, so I'm just like, okay, well, the ball's rolling. Here we go. Harper actually has never been in a formal school environment. We did have her go on one visit to a prep school, but ultimately it just felt so odd with her not being home for those few hours just for that day visit. But ultimately, we decided that the best thing is for both kids to be home. It's been a wonderful ride, pretty much all the core subjects, but I really take pride in the fact that we can teach to their interests and, of course, infusing African-American history and contemporary studies into the everyday curriculum. So
awesome.
That's what it's been. It's been a wild ride. It's been fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your family with us. Dr. Shaw.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm one of the older families here, but we've been seasoned. My wife and I have been married 33 years, and our children we have 5 children, 31, 29, 27, and twins who are 23. And 31-year-old graduated at MIT. He went to work at, and again, they're all very different, which is like we're talking about, all the diversity. He went to work at Google, as well as got involved in theater, and he's just doing all kinds of things with his life. The second one went to Dartmouth, and then went out and worked for banks and other companies. He ended up going on to get a MBA. And now he's like doing businesses, working with LinkedIn, but he's also doing his own business and stuff. Third one, that was the second one. The third one went to Harvard. He got a degree in both computer science and English. He majored in English and got a computer science minor, but he ended up with the first first rap thesis at Harvard. Google rap thesis Harvard.
Nice.
And his name pops up, right?
Love it.
So, but he's also writes books. He does all kinds of stuff. He went to Google also, and now he's a part of a startup as well. My daughters, both of them are twins. One of them is at Kennesaw right now, where I'm teaching. And she's an artist. She's about to graduate with an art degree. She's doing right now. She has some art in a exhibit. Particularly, she was just revealing to us that her art just got accepted at a exhibit here in Atlanta. My other daughter, she's been an entrepreneurial, doing all kinds of stuff. She's in sport management, but she's had a lot of ideas that you can tell she has the mind of a business woman. So she's got all kinds of things going on, but right now she focuses on sport management. So
awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Minister Tim.
So I have 4, of course. I have a 13-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. Before you judge me, because I see all the eyes, even in the dark. I have Irish twins, so my daughter will be 14 in March. But they are all so different, and I love it. My mom will say this because I'm also a 4 as well, and she used to say, "You're my favorite," and I used to feel some type of way, and I would be like, "Yes, I am your favorite. Please let everybody know." And I didn't realize she was telling the other 3 the same thing.
They were their favorite. She was her favorite too.
So tap your neighbor and say, "Stop lying." But anyway, but I got what she was saying when I had my 4th child. They are all different, and they're all favorite in every area, and they're all different. Matter of fact, me and my wife decided to do homeschool after leaving Memphis. I don't know, just something about the school systems at that time. I just did not trust them. And I was like, you know what? My daughter is not going to be raised in this foolishness. And my mom came to us and she was like, hey, I would love to teach you guys as kids. And I was like, hey, I think that would be great. and it has been a beautiful journey for her being a ex-teacher or I would say retired teacher, to take my kids as well as my brother's kids and have them from ground up.
That is amazing.
And I wanted it that way, one, because, I heard someone state earlier, my daughter, she's dyslexic, and my son just has attention problems, but he's smart as a whip. All of them are smart in their own areas, but just trying to find that path that will keep them where they need to be without losing them going to public school.
Yes.
But I do love the fact that they are able to stretch out. I mean, there was one semester where my mom gave them an opportunity to use their spiritual gifts through drawing. And so she would have them close their eyes and I want you to draw what Holy Spirit tells you. And just every single time that we would go and pick them up, it would be something new. That's what I loved. I wanted my kids to get more of a spiritual foundation than anything. I get the educational part, but being a preacher and everything like that, like I wanted them to have the spiritual component. Yeah. And my mom did that. I like till to this day, my kids rave on the programs. Like my mom is just not one of those ones who, you were just going to give her a certificate. Like she put on a full end of the year dance and sing. Man, it's beautiful. She's a creative, so she utilized her gifting as well. Yeah. And she pulled on them. So that's something that I knew I would never get in the public school. Yeah. Is that so super excited about that.
I love the way there are so many diverse perspectives, so many diverse experiences in terms of how you are choosing your homeschool, right? We've got father-led, we've got grandma-led. I want to hear from you fathers. In one word, how would you describe your role in your family's homeschool? One word.
CFO.
CFO. What kind of what we saying here?
I told my mom in the beginning, woman of God, you can have all the stuff that you want to sit down and talk to. Please tell my wife that. Okay. All I want to know is the bottom line. How much it's going to cost me. You want to bankroll this homeschool? Oh, for sure.
Okay, I got you.
Ask her what I sent her today.
Gotcha. Dr. Shaw, tell me what's your role? One word.
I feel like a promoter because there's so many things between the spiritual, the intellectual, the social. Their consciousness of being a black person in a world where there's all these challenges, and so my wife is really focused on the details of making it happen, of doing the education or doing whatever, and even in our church of being the first lady of the church and making sure everything happens, but. There needs to be, I feel like, a sense that they see a united front, and they see that even though I'm not as involved as in the educational aspect as my wife was, that that I'm how you say. Making that music, how like the background to the person who's singing is got to have a sort of a band making that beat, right? So they're dancing to the same rhythm, right? Yes. So everybody's got the same vision, and so we really do. I really feel like the family needs a united front when it comes to things like education and spiritual life and things like that. And so everybody's so important. Whoever is the person who's doing the educating, they need people in the family coming in and building up that view, that vision, that belief. I love it. And so that's what the promoter does. That's what I try.
We got a bankroller, we got a promoter. Dr. Rankin, what we got?
Okay, like I said, I'm going to go with the term CFO. However, it's a little bit different. It's actually Chief Facilitating Officer. So basically, it's my goal to make sure that everybody in the household has what he or she needs, right? So kind of like almost like a point guard or a pivot person, the person that when a big production's going on, the person that you go to make sure, hey, we need this and we need this here and for this reason. Actually, I don't even need no reason. Just let me know what you need. I'll get it. Right? So but basically just making sure that everybody has what they need and to make sure that things are just going as smoothly as possible. As we all know as homeschoolers, not every day is perfect. Not every day is seamless. There are some days when you look in the mirror, you say, what have I done? Or how did I get here? But I think for the most part, though, just trying to be that glue, that kind of just, or that rock that kind of just keeps things stabilized.
I love that.
And, like I said, my wife, like I said, because I'm doing the primary, instruction and planning and things like that, she's the bankroller, right? Like that. So what do I have to do to make sure that she has the peace and quiet that she needs to kind of do her job, right? She works, remotely. And while she does her thing and her career advances, how do I make sure that we're advancing over here when it comes to this homeschooling, right? For Blair, hey, can I create assignments that are actually going to engage him, that he's actually going to incorporate some of his interests and things, right? For Harper, how am I going to keep her engaged, keep her excited about different things? And so, it's a selflessness that you have to have, but it's also very rewarding at the end of the day where you feel like, you know what, everybody in the house has what they need, and I'm pretty low maintenance with that.
Sounds like you are facilitating well.
Trying my best.
Awesome. Akintunde, tell me, one word, what's your role?
You want one word.
I want one word.
First word that came to mind was principal, but that's insufficient. We've been homeschooling for the better part of 20 years. I was in my mid-20s when we got married. So I've been a father and effectively a homeschooler since my late 20s, early 30s to now I just turned 50. I'm the same guy, right? But I'm not the same man.
Yes.
I am. I was still coming out of my youth, even when we got married. And now at 50, who I am, who I understand myself to be is different. And that has, I think that plays into the role that we play as parents.
You've really hit on something really important, which is the idea of how the role evolves, right? Because you're basically saying, when I came and I started this thing, I played a kind of different role. I played the role that I knew to play at that particular season. But now at 50, it's a different role. I'd love to hear from the panel as well, kind of how have you seen your role in the family evolve? That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
With my kids being younger, coming home and be a teacher as well. Being that one to help with the homework when I can understand it, because 2024 mathematics ain't what it was in 2004.
It's a little different.
It's a lot of different. But just where I was the one who was always asking my wife, hey, can you make sure it's done before I get home? So that I can help cook and all the other stuff, prepare for the night. But it's evolved into us partnering. So like I take the older two kids and she take the smaller two kids, and we kind of split the roles now. So I give her that help that she needs. So I'm more than just the CFO. Like sometimes I have to put on a teacher hat.
I kind of figured it was CFO plus.
Yeah, it is a plus.
Yeah, got it. I want to hear for you as well, Dr. Shaw, how has your role expanded over the years?
Yeah, I feel like from the youngest years, especially when the kids start getting into things, like one of the things is reading. I think every kid needs to have the family kind of celebrate. Reading is so important. If kids don't read, they're going to get caught up in the, the digital age and not ever really develop their love for the written word. And so anytime, there were different books that the kids would get into, I'd have to dive in and get into that book series. I'd love, and I just loved doing that. I loved whether it was the Harry Potter series or it was the Animorphs or whatever, but they're series that they were into as kids. And if I got into it, it would reinforce, and they would go even further with it. And then as they got older, now I'm getting into the art world I love to see what my daughter's doing. I was trying to figure out, can we do one of those things where the family goes out to the art festival and helps build the big, exhibit, and do that. But we got to all as a family kind of be behind whatever it is that is their passion, whether it was basketball. My daughter's into basketball. Whether we can all be into basketball. I mean, in some way, we can all have an appreciation for whatever it is, whether it's rap. I remember when I was, the Message or, Run DMC, but now I got to learn the new ones. And
you want to try it out?
I tried. We just had over Christmas, they were doing, Obasi, can you tell us some of those names again? I can't remember the names. But he was doing the Christian rap.
Okay.
They were doing a Christian rap for, our Christmas, we had a little singing going on contest. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's so many things they're into and what we can do to lift them up, to be the wind beneath their wings.
Yes.
I just see it keeps evolving, but there's always a way as a parent, you can find a way to be excited about what they're excited about, and then push it a little further. Help them have a little bit more energy so they could take that to the top, wherever they're doing.
I learned something new about you.
Yeah.
You dropping bars at the house. But I love the idea that what you brought to the table is you're following your kids' interests. Even if it's outside of your comfort zone, you're saying, all right, I don't know, tell me those rappers' names again. Thank goodness for Google, right? So we can figure it out pretty quickly and then get in there. Getting into the books that they're into, that is just such priceless work. Talk to me a little bit about, let's talk to the moms who may have a vision for how they want the fathers to be involved in their homeschool. But maybe the dad is a little bit reluctant, right? Because when we think about homeschooling, we're thinking this is mom's lane and dad's gonna stay in a different lane. Sometimes they may not even be on the same highway, right? So how can that mom who is looking at her homeschool and saying, hey, I want us to get closer on that highway. I want us to be kind of in at least parallel, if not in the same lane. What would you tell her in terms of how she could draw that father more so into their homeschool?
Well, again, for me, like I said, because I'm sort of at the helm of the homeschooling operation at home, it's a little bit different, but I will say, though, is that communication is key, and also planned communication is key. So, for example...
Can you say that again? Planned communication?
Planned communication is
all right, so we need to write that down. Planned communication.
Yeah, so like I said, it will happen organically. Don't get me wrong, it will. But I think, for example, Leticia is really good at saying, hey, look, if we ever get lucky enough where we can have the kids with the grandparents for a weekend or something like that, we'll say, hey, let's use this Saturday. Let's go up to the our favorite Barnes Noble. Let's just kind of sit down. We can peruse through different curriculum pieces they might have there, different books they have there. But also, let's sit down at the table and just talk about our vision for this year. Talk about what went well, what didn't go well. Hey, I see this new curricular piece here. How do you feel about this? Let's try this. Let's kind of divvy through this. And I remember that process of actually going through different pamphlets or different books and saying, you know what, we like this or we don't like that. But I felt so much more relief. I felt relief the fact that she spearheaded that conversation even before I could even get to it, before I could even broach it. She said, hey, let's go do this. Knowing full well that, hey, I'm going to be the one who has to teach it, but she's fully on board and saying, let's come together and meet the meeting of the minds, because it's not a competition. We're on the same team here, right? Like that. And
Say
so,
that.
And there are different times where, whether it's from the planning phase or from the execution phase or the grading phase, where she's like, hey, I think you could have handled that a little bit better. Or, hey, I think you came down a little bit hard on him a little bit, or on Harper a little bit. Can you back up a little bit? And so I think, like I said, just the key is to have that open dialogue always there, and grace, forgiveness. She'll tell me that a lot, like, hey, you need to exercise a little bit more grace. And I think, again, like I said, communication, and especially planned communication.
Yeah. I love that, because what I'm hearing from you is you got to be proactive about the communication. Let's not wait until the fire alarms are going off and we're in full-blown crisis mode, but really being intentional about proactive and planned communication, maybe at some regular interval, is a way to kind of help bring the father in and let them know, I kind of want you in this homeschool. Because I know me, when I was homeschooling, I think my husband at times like, bruh, just let me do my thing, right? And so I feel like being really intentional about recognizing it is our thing, and having both of us involved in that is really going to benefit everybody. Anybody else? What would you tell that mom who's trying to reel that father in to the homeschooling a bit more?
I think that for starters, every couple is a little different. right?
True.
But as with, and you really hit some key points, because what really kind of resounded with me is that regardless of your dynamic, what you have to have in your marriage, in order for your marriage to work, in order for your combined finances to work, in order for any of that to work, is agreement. Right?
Agreement.
So you start with a point of agreement. You're going to the Father together, agreeing with Him, so that you can agree with each other, and then you start to make your plan out. When we started, it was easy for me to just kind of be the facilitator, CF financial O, and say, you know what, this was kind of your vision. I trust you. I love you. Make it happen. I'm going to work. And it was easy because I spent about 10 to 15 years where I was on the road, 25 to 30 weeks out of the year.
Wow.
So I spent a lot of time gone. I'd come in on the weekend and I'd fly in on a Friday, throw my bags down, wouldn't barely unpack just enough to, do laundry. And I was trying to coach, I would run to a game, sit, put the hat on. Good job, let's go. Sunday night comes, I'm shutting everything down, and I'm back on a plane Monday morning.
Right.
So, and that was, I didn't realize how much I had missed, and actually until COVID, when a lot of that got shut down. But then through it all, I would get sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle hints of how much I was being missed by the chaos that might happen. And oftentimes it wasn't just the chaos that was happening. It might be great things that were happening that I had no idea of.
Yeah.
Right? So in terms of a dad's role, one, agreeing, if we're going to agree that this is how we're going to raise our family and nurture our kids, then there absolutely needs to be that input, from the both of you. And I would say as a husband, it's hard for you to make him do that as a wife.
Yeah.
Right. But it does have to be something that you both come together and say, okay, this is how we're going to live. And this is how we're going. This is how we agree to nurture our children.
But,
and go ahead.
What I do hear you saying, I think I hear you saying, is that the level of urgency rose for you. It was kind of like in the beginning, this train looks like it's moving along just fine. It's important, but once that level of urgency rose, and so I'm wondering if a conversation around this is not just important, this is urgent, could be something that appeals maybe to the father.
I think to your point, COVID really shook us. And, I laugh about it because my kids was like, man, Dad, everybody else is doing this, that, and the third and all this. And I'm like, but y'all been homeschooled y'all whole life. So they catching up to what y'all have already been doing. So the expectation is totally different. But I did see something for me as a father that it's like I heard my wife saying stuff and hearing her frustration. And to your point, I was always traveling or at work or all of the above. So my attention was, look, I gave you the tools by giving you the finances and I gave you my time on what you needed, but I need you to handle this. And that was my thought. And it wasn't until she looked at me and was like, baby, this ain't about me. My kids were like, well, how come Daddy don't never help? And that changed the trajectory of me. And in 2021, I enrolled in seminary. So I said, you know what? Let me make this an effort for all of us. So instead of me saying, do what I say, I started sitting at the table with them.
Right.
I started doing my homework and showing them, I started showing them my grades. Like, listen, I've been out of school since 2006. And if I can do it, I ain't saying I'm an old guy, but I'm just saying, but in my age, I'm like, you can do it as well too. So I think for me, it was taking that relief off my wife, but not just saying it, but doing it. For that man that is struggling, trying to connect and agree, the word that I kept hearing was grace. I had to give my wife the grace to tell me what was really wrong with her. And grace her enough to say, you know what, baby, you're right. My apologies, and apologize to her to say, I'm sorry for being absent in this area of not just our marriage, but also in my kids' life. And you also got to see the value in showing up in your kids. Even though you may not know the subject or what the heck is going on that piece of paper, sometimes your presence, you just sitting at the table with them, you know, you may be like, yeah, I don't understand this problem, but Googling it with them. So you say, okay, y'all, let's do this together. This is what it says doing. That changes as well. And so I just saw the value in giving my wife that grace to hear her frustration and me say, okay, Timothy, you got to help your wife or you're going to burn her out.
Yeah. You all just touched on that communication aspect, grace, communication, being intentional, all are critical in kind of bringing the father in and making him feel welcome. That's what I heard as well. Creating an environment and situations where the father feels welcome to come sit in your homeschool. Because, you know, I might have been sitting at the table like, oh, okay, you coming to our homeschool? But no, this is our homeschool. Here's a seat. It's ready for you. Come on in. I love that.
I just want to add one thing to that. I think it's awesome to have, particularly if you're educating your children, to have a background in education, right? But just because you don't, and speaking to the dads, just because you don't, our impact as fathers in this process is insurmountable. It doesn't matter that, I mean, we have some homeschool dads that are just regular. They're not necessarily academicians, what have you. They're just regular Joes. But their impact is absolutely needed.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that for some dads, that could be, and even for me, you know, I went to college and I thought I was smart till I get around smart people. You know what I mean? but you know, even then, there were times where it's like, God, I don't know if I can handle this. You know, well, no, let's find somebody else, or honey, you got it, what have you. But I think it's important to realize that it you know, our pedigree, you know, as dads doesn't matter. It's our intention to love them enough to just be present, be there, and give our heart into it.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, I feel I know this is kind of controversial too, because I feel like we see so much divorce in the Black community. I grew up in, I can't remember any families that weren't divorced around my family, around my community. And my kids have grown up in the homeschool community, and I know there is some, but by and large, my kids didn't know too many families that couldn't make it. And I feel like it's not guaranteed. I mean, we definitely have seen families that didn't make it. But because the wife and the husband are working together on the issues that have to do with homeschooling, because this is sort of, they build a community when they succeed at it, right? When they don't succeed at it, it's not necessarily a success story. But when they succeed at doing this, which is, again, not passing it on to the school system to do, but when they work through all those issues, I think the marriages are stronger because we end up seeing so many families that are whole, you know, in other words, that did not get that divorce. So I see that my kids grew up among homeschool families. You go through DCHE. I mean, we've always been in the church, but the church has just about the same divorce rate as people outside of the church. But inside the homeschool community, it's like, I don't know. I'm thinking, you know, I don't know the numbers, but personally, it seems like 90% of the families are together. Yeah. Where you get, because I think it's building community that happens when you solve these problems and you decide, like you have to, that it's everybody's issue. It's not the wife's issue. It's not the husband's. It's not the kids. Everybody has to come together to make this happen. And I think that's the way God always intended it, is that we would, because of the children, we would become even closer to one another and not to have this be one more thing that everybody's doing in their own little silo. You know, the kids off in school, the parents off in their careers, and there's nothing to bring the family together to build community among themselves. And homeschooling has got back to building that community, and the families survive a little better. Not all. I know. We see the in and out, but there are a lot of families that benefit from the struggle of building a homeschool community. Yeah,
I think to a degree, what I think I hear you saying is your homeschool is your ministry. You know, it's a ministry that you're coming together to do, and I love that you bring that to the fore. I do want to also, though, talk about for the moms whose fathers are not in the home for whatever reason, what are some ways that that mom who has the distance with the father, how does she create a situation where she invites that father to be more active and present in the homeschool, even if they're not living in the home?
I saw this with my mom, my cousin. Same thing, you know, she went through a divorce, and of course, the daughter was going back and forth. But during the time of, my mom hosting the homeschool at her home, she and he was not that involved as well. But what she did was she invited him to that end of the year program. She invited him to, those things that she was doing so that he could see the effects of it. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we can look at the distance and the disconnect, but be intentional about finding ways to bring them in. So rather if it's, hey, I want to take a day that we just go over everything that he or she has done in this semester and invite them to see it.
Like a parent-teacher conference.
Exactly, mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think, I can speak for myself, but I think the consensus, most men are very visual. Like, you got to show me. You just can't tell me numbers. You got to show me numbers. So to involve that husband or involve that father who's absent into the weekly life of that child, just updates, that may just change, that'll change the trajectory of that child.
Yes.
To know that my dad cares so much to know how my progress is.
Yes.
Going. So, yeah.
And going
yes, Dr. Rankin.
Those lines too, in terms of the visual aspect of it. Like I'm thinking about things like, developing your a work portfolio for your child, right? So they put things in folders or in binders. So let's say when that other parent who may or may not be in the house, like if they can have the child almost like sit down with them and open up the binder and say, hey, this is what we've been going over for the past week, the past 2 weeks, the past month. This is our unit on civil rights, or this is our unit on measurement, or what have you, right? So it's almost like, in many ways, you're sort of hitting off on multiple cylinders, because like the child's able to express his or her own learning and
yes.
What their challenges were, what their victories were, and while the other parent is there actually seeing them, and they can ask questions about what they're doing and how did you find that assignment, or what were the challenges. So really making homeschooling in and of itself, you said it's the ministry, homeschooling in it's also an ever evolving conversation. Like homeschooling is a conversation that can always be restarted. You may put it on the back burner for a little bit and take a break, but it's always something that's just there. It's always something that can just kind of keep churning and keep evolving. So thinking about it in that kind of way and having all parts of the family involved in that conversation.
Yeah, that ever-evolving conversation. I'm making a mental note of that, because it is that ever-evolving conversation that needs to be happening on a consistent basis. And Dr. Rankin, I'm glad that you answered that question, because I was coming to you next anyway, because we all kind of touched about how COVID really impacted how we homeschooled and really how we approach family in general. Tell me about, for those, and looking at the statistics, I also know that the number of fathers that are leading homeschools, I believe between 2019 and 2022, it jumped from like 5% to like 40%. So fathers are really, really, really now catching up, if you will, and really moving that along very significantly. So I imagine there might be some fathers out here who are thinking about it. What advice would you give them if they were thinking, maybe I could kind of take on the primary educator role with respect to homeschooling? What advice would you give them as they're contemplating that?
Yeah, definitely. Big question. But I think, like I said, the gentleman was saying earlier, first and foremost, just stepping up to the plate and being present in that moment, and being present and saying to your child, saying to your family, hey, this is something that I want to do. That's key, right? That's just voicing that interest and showing that dedication. I would say number 2, prefacing it by saying, hey, this is gonna be a journey on a wild ride. I'm gonna make mistakes, and we're gonna all make mistakes here, but this is something that we can all enjoy and we can all partake in. And perfection is not necessarily the key, it's the process. And I think that's very key. Also, for fathers who are interested, just know that I think this is it's an untapped resource in the sort of grand scheme, right? In the macro scheme, right? It's like, this is a frontier that I feel like is just ripe for the picking. I mean, imagine just almost like a an army or like a new sort of, almost like a new wave of men, particularly Black men, showing different facets of leadership, facets of masculinity, facets of family life. I almost feel like teaching, because teaching is so multifaceted and so multi-layered, in many ways, in your homeschooling, for crying out loud, so it doesn't get more personal and more involved than that, right?
Yeah.
So I almost feel like to step up to that plate and say, I'm going to do this, is a wonderful, powerful opportunity. And I feel like it's something that is, even if you have your sort of misgivings or your sort of trepidation about it, it is definitely worth the leap. And you're gonna fail, but it's okay. But I think that's what it is, though. There's so many lessons in there, right? Even the spiritual lesson of grace and forgiveness. It's okay. This process is such a, again, it's such a right process for growth,
Yeah.
for advancement, for learning.
And even in that failing forward, right?
Forward.
Recognizing that in that failure, we're still moving forward. I mean, the stock market don't go like this. It's an upward trajectory of ups and downs. And so recognizing that as a father, you need that same grace, whether you're leading the education part or you're not. Oh, I see, doctor. I see you.
Yeah, no, I just want to say you can never fail as a father when you start
Amen.
putting your time into your
Amen.
children, because there are so many children who fall by the wayside because they don't have their father there. And you look at the jails, they're filled with especially young men who don't have a real close relationship with their father. Just that close relationship would have turned everything around.
Right.
And the father doesn't even have to be, like you say, educator or whatever. It just needs to be there.
Yeah.
And you know what? I look at my family. This is, my own statistic. I got 3 boys. I got 2 brothers who have between them 3 boys. 2 of their boys have been in and out of jail. Me, all 3 of my boys have been through college, finished. None of their boys have. I had, the experience of homeschooling, they didn't. It just, my being there was the difference. And I'm just saying, if men want to see their children succeed, be there. Just be there. That's all they need. They need you, and they need your voice, and they need your encouragement. They need to hear you say, well done, my good son, right?
Yes,
well done, right?
yes.
And I really believe that, with our deeper voices and all that, when you say to your son that you're proud of him, he's going to turn his life in that positive direction,
Yes.
whatever you say. So, I don't think they can fail. I just don't think they can fail. If they put their time in, I don't think the men are going to fail.
Y'all, so we were calling him doctor. Really, we heard pastor, but I appreciate
I
that.
was gonna lean into pastor. I was about to say you preaching, sir, but no, that's real. For any man that's contemplating this decision, you can control the narrative. Like, I can control what my kids are learning. You can't necessarily control that in a public school, especially with all of these changes that are happening literally every day. And all it needs is a bill to be passed, and that is no control that you can. You can either decide to pull that child out, decide to do whatever. But for me, I can control the narrative on what my kids are learning.
Yes.
My mom meets with us every semester. I know what my kids are learning. I don't even have to question. I can go to work peacefully knowing that my kids are learning something in the room. So, to me, I look at the bottom line, man, that's a bottom line. I can control the narrative.
Presence is enough. So having the father involved in some way, we're just hearing real life that it makes an impact and it matters. All right, so we are wrapping up. Believe it or not, our time has flown by. So as we're wrapping up, what is the one thing that you would tell your first-year homeschooling self that you didn't know now, that you didn't know then that you know now? What's one thing you would tell that original homeschooling father in year 1 that you now know that you didn't know then?
It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right.
I love it. We back to pastor. Here we go.
Trust the process.
Trust the process.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. I love that.
Just, but and say that, hey, it's gonna be a roller coaster, but please enjoy the ride. Just
Enjoy the ride. I love it. Akintunde.
This is just personal to me. I think something along the lines of, don't even know how I'd phrase it, but the money is less important than the input.
Oh.
Right?
Can you say that one more time?
Wait, we're going to drop the mic. Wait, no, don't drop the mic. We do figuratively drop the mic. But yeah.
The money, it's less important than the input. It's not like it was a lot, but I think, it's easy to get caught up in that grind. And then this is what I got to do. And this is the only way I'm going to be able to do it, right? But this is what I got to do in order to provide this foundation for the family, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it.
These are our folks. I would have told myself to trust God enough, right, to know that this doesn't have to be the only way. I don't operate off of regrets, but I realize that I lost a lot of time, and I'm making up for it now.
Amen. Amen.
So
awesome.
Something along those lines, yeah.
This was tremendous. I cannot thank you. Can we just give them a round of applause? Your impact, the jewels and the pearls that you have dropped this afternoon, they've moved me. I'm sure that they have moved those mothers and fathers in this audience, those who are here and those who are online. And we just encourage you, while the moms are out there on the front lines, don't remember, you still need a backbone. That's our fathers. So thank you so much. We're going to open up the floor for any questions. We have just a few minutes for some questions because I see they're rolling the clock on me now. Yes, sir.
There we go. How much discipline was needed? And it's not like kids just running wild, but to get them to another level in their development, clearly one of the things that was missing was a certain level of discipline. And you guys know when you got homeschool, the more you can have your household run like a well-oiled machine, the better it is for everybody. But having your household run like a well-oiled machine requires engineers.
Yeah.
And
first of all, you don't make all these men sit up on their chair when you said this. Now you talking real. Go ahead, Pastor.
Yeah, well, I think, you have to, it's a two-edged sword, man. You got to put the time in when you're not disciplining and when you're disciplining. Because if the discipline is only the focus of your time, then it sends the wrong message. Like you gotta be focused on, having a good time with your kids, enjoying them, playing, having, giving them your time. Then when you come and say that was wrong and you will obey or whatever, you will listen to me, they're going to do it out of respect, not out of fear, right? Because they want you to be involved the way you've been involved. So it can't just be discipline. It's got to be there, like you're saying. Without discipline, right, everything can go wrong. But if you put the time in before, then when you come down with the discipline, it's in the right balance.
I hear relationship before rules.
Right.
That's what I hear.
When I think of discipline too, I think about the idea of, I almost liken discipline to parameters, boundaries, protection. I almost feel like setting the standard and setting expectations early and setting those things very, very clearly early on is going to actually it might actually mitigate the need to have to sort of like come in with the iron fist after the fact if so-and-so gets out of line, so to speak, right? But if you can draw those lines very, very clearly and say, hey, for example, my son's schedule, right? And my son and daughter's schedule, that's one example of a tangible example of like the parameters, right? Or my expectations for the day. When we start homeschooling, this is what we're doing today. Before you do X, Y, and Z in terms of leisure, this has to get done. It is very, very clear, and it's the routine to the point where like once the day gets started, we know what it is. We all know what it is. And so discipline, I would say, and I'm not really like a rah-rah kind of like iron fist kind of person, but I feel like what I don't do in that regard, what I do though is I think I plan very well and I plan very clearly. So I don't even have to get loud. I don't really have to get upset or come in swinging because you know what it is. It's literally written right there on the board for you.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? Right?
Yeah.
So what are you doing to my son or my daughter? So I feel like a lot of it in many ways, discipline can be it's preemptive or it can be sort of pre-planned before you even have to come in after the fact.
I hear proactive consistency.
I would say balance. Big balance. For me, I was the iron fist for years, and all they had to say was, "Let me call your daddy." And all of a sudden, they start writing right. They start adding right. They know what 2 + 2 is. But then that's all I became to them. And so I had to flip it because, as I stated, all my kids are different, but they all the same. I can say, sit down, and my oldest daughter, who's about to be 14, will start crying because she just hates when I have that. All right, now, Zakari. She hates that. So me, I had to learn that balance. Then you don't want your spouse to say, you were too hard on them. Now that they don't want to do anything because all they keep thinking about is, well, if I don't do this, daddy gonna get me. That's not a right way to look at it. So I had to learn a balance. I would say at some point, you got to say, okay, y'all, let's come together and let's do this together. But then there's other times you got to be like, listen, I tell my kids, I got this 5, let me get this 3 fingers real quick. And they already know they don't want that. So you find that balance. And then when you find that balance, just make sure you stay consistent. Yeah. All right. Don't just be one higher than the other this week and then, because then you, to what Pastor said, you're going to throw them off. So yeah, find that balance.
I heard Akintunde say it don't work. So I got to follow up on that.
No, the discipline does work.
Okay.
It depends on what you mean, right? I can tell you this, in my own experience and in the experience of most of the homeschool families that I've encountered, there's no such thing as a well-oiled machine.
Amen.
It don't work like
it doesn't
that.
exist.
Discipline, though, I would say, what's the scripture? I think an undisciplined child is embarrassment to his mother, something like that. I get it, but guess what? It starts from here. It starts from me. So if I'm setting an environment with the parameters that allow them, their freedoms to be able to, okay, this is the time that you have to be able to do what you need to do, and this is the time that you have to be able to just enjoy your life. Like for us, I think it's crucial to have joy in our house, because without that joy, we just don't have the peace. And they may sit there and stay on task, kind of, but I think both of you really hit on it. You can't be so rigid with it that it's something that they're feeling like they're forced to do, and they're not. And at that point, they're not learning to have a love for learning.
Yes,
they're not learning to have a love for the environment that they're in, right? And then they'll start comparing. Honestly, they'll start comparing their experience to the kids that they've met that are in the public school setting, right? And say, oh God, I want that. Right? Mm-hmm. So often we found that a lot of the kids that like my son would play ball with, and they would see what we're doing, and they'd be like, God, I wish I could homeschool.
Right.
Right. My son realized that you had to raise your hand to get up to go to the bathroom. Right. Or if you wanted a sandwich outside of the bell ringing for school that you couldn't eat. Those type of things. So I would place less emphasis on strict discipline, and just provide an environment, a disciplined environment with structure, but with freedom.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
You all hit on balance. It's like we don't want to be too heavy-handed here. You got to have that compassion coupled with the discipline. It's got to be a nice balance for that environment. That's such an awesome question. It looks like that's all we got, and that's great because I'm out of time. No, that's not all we got. That is all we got. So I appreciate everybody this afternoon. Thank you so much, fathers, again. Look forward to doing this again.